Hello and welcome to our video on how to rig and de-rig the new J70, which is called Joda. Today we have Alberto, who's hiding behind the camera. Oh, there he is. We have Tim, Anne-Laure and me, Nathalie. Here's a key, and without much ado, let's get on with it. So this J70 is very similar to the other J70 Padawan. There are a few differences. We'll come to them in detail, but they're mainly around the jib cleats and the jib pulleys. And you'll notice we also have different winches. I like to put one each side, and it just slides down the back of the bench. There's a gap. This one fits easier on this side because it's a bit smaller, and we have this shoe ring there. So I'm going to put the keys in there so they're keeping.
And the sail repair kit also has the distress flag and the fog horn in it, and a photocopy of the carte grise. And just a quick difference while Natalie's doing that is that this boat has no lights. So you cannot sail it after sunset unless you buy your own temporary lights and fix them on.
So let's start at the front of the boat. We'll start at the bow. We need to remove the jib cover.
Fix the Spinnaker halyard in a way that you don't have to climb the mast to put back the jib cover. Huh?
Exactly.
And it's boring rolling it, but it makes it much easier to put it up when you're dashing to the bar later in the evening.
So here we have the jib sheets. They're red.
Same color as Padawan.
Exactly. The jib cars on this boat are slightly different in the way we attach them. So on the front there's this hoop, and we just do a bow line on the front. Okay, great. Then we run the sheet forward to the pulley.
Making sure that this is nice and tightly rolled.
That's very important.
Then it comes back through the pulley at the top. Just making sure it clicks the right way. So you need it to click as you're trimming on, so pulling in towards the center of the boat.
Absolutely, yes.
So as you'll see, it's a continuous loop, and we've just done in reverse on this side what we did on the other side.
Nathalie, we should make a bow knot, not a figure of 8 here.
You could do a stopper knot if you prefer. Benjamin suggested a bowline. So that's the rigging of the jib sheet. Okay, now to the mainsail. So like on Padawan, the halyard for the mainsail is on the starboard side of the mast, and at the moment we're using it as the topping lift or the balancine for the boom. When we're going to attach the mainsail, we need to carefully lower the boom. So that's got to be controlled, or it'll drop and hit the deck and damage it. So we have to be very careful. So Tim is now easing the halyard to me, and I'm controlling the boom coming down. Now I can detach the halyard from the boom, and then we'll attach it to the head of the mainsail. We'll also attach the clew of the mainsail to the outhaul. So we'll ease the outhaul here to have some slack, so that I can pull it here. And then attach the shackle. Feed that through.
So not so tight because it needs to slide along the boom, but not too loose that it's the boom is too low.
So moving on to the Spinnaker, if you want to fly the Spinnaker. So important to remember that the Spinnaker is hoisted and dropped in front of the shrouds. So bear that in mind when we're rigging. I like to tie this around the shrouds just to keep it in place.
On the same side where we put the halyard?
Yes, on the same side. Yes, good point. So we're going to prepare the Spinnaker on the port side. So, and we take it around the forestay. Around the outside of the shroud. To the pulley at the back of the boat. From the outside, in. Then it comes back to this pulley here. And again we need to check that it's clicking in the right direction. So clicking as you pull into the boat. And then we do the same on the port side. Outside of the shrouds. Back to this pulley. So now for the Spinnaker sail itself. So here's the head. We need to check that the halyard is not under the forestay and it goes right around the forestay. And so when it's from the top of the mast, it comes clean down to the head of the Spinnaker. Attach the halyard to the head so that's nice and clipped. And that runs clear. Then we'll attach the sheets. The sheets go onto the clew. The clew, it's written here, but it's also the one with a little material strop. Okay, so your bow line. And then last but not least, we need the tack line.
The tack line, yes.
We need to uncleat it on the starboard side. And Tim is pulling it out the front of the pole. And he's going to pull it, make sure it goes around the front of the forestay.
And it goes over or under the sheets?
It goes over. So this is why I actually do it in this order. I do the halyard first, then I do the Spinnaker sheets after the jib sheets because they go on top of the jib sheets, and the tack line goes above everything. So if you do it last, it's easier to check it. And here we do a bow line.
As
All
short
right.
as possible. Yeah.
Well,
As short as possible.
Not, yeah, and as close to here as possible.
Yep. First of all,
the fuel tank. You should have all have seen this on Padawan. It's exactly the same model. When you take the top off, you can't pour it. This one is actually empty at the moment, but imagine that it's full. The way that you have to press on this when it's in the tank, it has to, and then that opens it. So if you need to add fuel and you have fuel in here, this is very safe because you can open this and then you can put it there
And press.
and press, and then it releases it, and as soon as it's full,
It will
you
stop.
just release, and it should stop automatically. So let's imagine that you're arriving and you want to check the motor. The first thing you do is, like you've just done, is you open it, check there is a bit of fuel in there. Yep, there is enough fuel for us to get out there. Close that again. Then open this. Open this part. Just a turn is enough. That lets the air in. And at the end of the outing, remember to close it, because otherwise it lets air. It also lets air in during the night and you get condensation. So when you're running, it should be open. Next thing to check is, have you got the safety key on? That needs to be under that button, otherwise it won't start. And now the bit that we all forget is that there is a fuel on and off here. And on that is off and that is on. So you need to turn it on, check it's on. If it's off, it will run for a few minutes and then it will fail just at that critical moment. So for starting, one should set that there. I would recommend on a warm day that you don't put any choke on and you just try it. And I forgot to say to check that you're in neutral. So it should be in neutral, which is in this, which is there. And it's good that we discuss this quickly. This engine, like Padawan's engine, but different from all our other outboards on our Surprises, it only has neutral and in gear. So to decide whether you want to go forward or backwards, it's a question of turning the motor. So in this position, this is forward, you're in neutral, turn like that, you can put like that, and then if you put it in gear now, you'll reverse. If you do want to turn the engine into reverse, don't do it when the boat's going very fast. Do it carefully so that this bit engages on the plastic on the shaft neatly. If the boat's moving too fast or you do it too quickly, you can damage the plastic. We're going to go out now. We're going to reverse out that way, and then we're going to go forward out the channel. Anne-Laure is at the front ready to cast off there. I'm going to ask Nathalie to take both stern lines and go on this side. Okay, Anne-Laure, you can cast off. Okay, so the skipper holds up the boom so it doesn't bend that flat.
So the skipper also maintain the boat against the wind, huh?
Is the main sheet unfitted?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll unclick the bank.
Yeah.
Okay, bank's unfitted.
So very important that Nathalie is spinning it in, so it makes the job of Anne-Laure a bit easier and it avoids damage to the sail.
put it in the top eyelet, then 2. Bring it back down into the hole in the gooseneck. Feed it through there. And then I tie a bowline onto this bottom eyelet. And so when we do that, it pulls this section flat as well, and it just means that you have more of a flat sail at the bottom.
Okay. So you don't use this.
Absolutely, that's a good point. We don't use this. And with the Cunningham, you need to check that it's going to go on either side so that this doesn't get caught in the spinnaker when you hoist it. And so we'll unfurl the jib, take it out of the furler. So the purpose of having the second cleat is that if the boat's heeling over a fair bit and you're sitting on the high side, you can use this cleat on the high side while keeping your weight out and keeping the boat flat.
Instead of this one.
Instead of the one on the low side. So just putting on some out haul. And the bang.
Okay. And we are sailing.
Aha.
Coming up. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. Okay, let's go.
Hey. So, like on the other J70, as soon as we've hoisted the spinnaker, we prepare the halyard for when we want to drop it, and we put the halyard in this little carabiner. So when we come to drop, all I will do is I'll pull down hard, and it will release the cleat. It's much easier. And rolling the jib.
Ready to jibe?
Ready to jibe?
Jibing. Mind your head. So on the jibe, the importance is to release what was the windward sheet very fast and pull in the new sheet very fast as well. So it's release one and pull in the other.
If there's a bit of pressure, you might want to use the winch. We would just put a wrap around the winch. These winches are lightweight, so there's no handle, but it does help to relieve some of the load if there's a lot of wind. Today we don't need them.
How many turns you make?
Just
Two,
one.
three? Just one?
Yeah, one should be enough. You can undo the click click, and that also makes it easier to pull on.
It makes it easier to release.
Yeah.
So there is an argument for not using the clicker pulleys, but to use the winch. Because the winch you can take off for the release.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to drop the spee now, and we're going to drop it to windward, which is actually easier on this boat than dropping it to leeward. So Nathalie will get hold of the windward sheet so that she's got that under control, and we'll go on to, and we'll bear away. And of course the jib out first. Well remembered that, Nathalie. Okay, so Nathalie, you ready? You've got hold of that sheet?
I'm ready.
Okay.
And I'm releasing when she's clean.
Okay.
Got it.
Okay. And it's important what Anne-Laure's doing is she's releasing it in a controlled fashion. You've got a lot of wind. The big danger is the spee ends up in the lake, which is not good for sailing performance. Well done.
First, I release the pole, then the tack. When
Choiseul and last the halyard. And the reason is, if you release the pole first and then the tag, as I'm pulling in a Spinnaker, the pole will come in by itself.
Videos actually of talking people through slowly and logically.
This boat is much faster than our Surprise because we have Tim on the helm.
Okay, we're going to roll the jib, which is always easier if you bear away, so we're bearing away, so we're nearly on the run. Okay, Nathalie, you can roll the jib. See, it's nice and smooth.
I made sure that the two cleats were undone on the jib sheets before going.
Okay, now we're going to go up gently near the wind so that we can get the motor down. And for sailing, we close the valve at the top, so that has to be opened again, and we close the valve at the side, so that has to go. So I'm going to hold the end of the boom to protect it from scratching the deck. I'm going to keep the boat head to wind so far as possible, and then we can start releasing it.
Before we drop, I'm just going to ease the outboard to protect the sail. We're going to do the Cunningham first.
And now are the fenders, please.
The best place for the fenders is one on the lifeline near the winch, and a second one halfway between here.
So we've come in and the motor actually decided not to run at slow speed. That's why we came in improvised, but it worked well. We didn't hit anything, which is the most important thing. All we need to do is close this and close the fuel tank here. Why do we do this? This means that cold, damp air will not be sucked in and condensed inside the fuel tank during the night. Also, there is much less risk of fumes, pet fumes coming out. And leave the motor vertical in the water. There's no need to tip it up, and in fact it's better to leave it like that. The oil in the motor stays in the right place, a lot less problems. Secure the rudder. These are the lines for the backstay. Just put them like that. Across from that side. And then, whoops. Like that. Across from that side. And then we just put a bit of tension on. We don't need a lot of tension, just enough tension to hold it there. If you put too much tension on, we're going to tension up the mast. But this is nice and loose, this is nice and stable, it looks very neat and tidy.
Great, so just showing where the anchor is stored.
Yeah.
It's on the starboard side, that's the bench there, and it's just behind here, protected in this bag. We need to clean the hull of Joda. We have this cheap diver, which is a two-person job. So we start at one end of the boat, we'll start at the bow. We need to pass the netting under the hull. Okay, so now we've passed it under the hull, we want to make sure it's flat, and then we basically pull up on one side and then on the other. And we gradually move backwards. So we do this all the way until we go past the keel, and then we do the same starting from the stern and moving forwards. And so that's to clean the hull. Then for the keel and the rudder, we have a soft brush. It's this one with this blue brush. You can actually do the rudder standing on the back, and the keel you do need to dive underneath, but this makes it quite a lot easier.